Hello and welcome everyone to the latest Agile Boston podcast. I'm Joe DeAngelis here with the entire complete and awesome Agile Boston leadership team, Daniel Mezick, Ann Brea, and Pooja Pawa. And today we are going to be talking about the proceedings from the awesome open space we had at the 2024 Give Thanks for Scrum.
Lots of juicy bits.
All right. So one of the I guess themes or topics that were talked about was around, does a mature team really need a Scrum Master anymore? And this one really resonated with me because in my current role, I do actually function as a Scrum Master. So there was a lot of things in here that I thought were really cool. So, one of the key highlights of the conversation was really focusing on defining the role of what a Scrum Master actually does, right? So we saw the different pieces that people say, okay, you know what, this is how a Scrum Master, works on a team. They either remove impediments, they coach the team, they help them, they do several different things to make sure that the team is successful. So the question is, what if we remove that? What happens, right? So I think this topic has been brought up several times, but over the time, we've noticed that this idea of the coach, right? So if we take it into like the sports analogy, a coach is just there to really draw up the play. And then the team has to go ahead and execute. So without the coach there watching and making sure that they're able to execute, is it really something that's going to still be successful, right? The Scrum Master helps facilitate, they help make sure that the sprint goals, the actual conflicts are resolved, sorry, and impediments are also removed. So one of the things that we really want to make sure that we focus on is, hey, even though they may not have to play as much of a role within that Scrum team, they're still needed to ensure that the process, that things still happen the way that they were intended to. So at the end, I know that we're really focused on making sure that the Scrum Master still is there. It's just that their role and what they're actually going to be doing to help continue to make sure that that team is focused and aligned and meets their goals and delivers, ensures that, they're still playing that role, but maybe in a different facet than what they originally started off with in order to keep the team moving. So, all right. What do you guys think? Any additional thoughts, or where have you come with that whole idea of a mature team needing a Scrum Master?
Well, I think you're spot on with pointing that out. It was a great conversation. And I really believe that the role of a Scrum Master is to teach the team and the organization how to do Scrum effectively. But at the end of the day, it's the team's responsibility, as you said, to execute Scrum. And if you need a Scrum Master to constantly push them to have planning, to refine a backlog, to communicate impediments or things that are slowing them down, then the team really hasn't adopted Scrum. Or if you constantly have to talk to an executive about not meddling into the team's execution or changing priorities, then the organization has really not adopted Scrum. But I believe that once your goal as a Scrum Master is similar to the goal of a manager. When I became a manager in software development, the senior manager that promoted me put his arm around me and said, "Joe, now remember, your job is to not have a job." And I honestly didn't understand what that meant at the time, but I absolutely understand what that means now. It's the Scrum Master's job to work themselves out of a job for that team, and then to move on to another team and another team and another part of the organization.
I was going to bring up the same point, Joe. And I've had experiences in companies where the Scrum Masters said that, and what we were referring to and thinking of is working ourselves out of the job we have today, because the team becomes empowered. The team learns how to help themselves and solve whatever challenges are slowing them down in the moment, which then elevates the Scrum Master to spending more time, let's say, coaching the executives or coaching other parts of the organization. As the team becomes more empowered, then they're also become the examples. And it's this sort of self-fulfilling prophecy, but that working yourself out of a job is working yourself out, or my interpretation and kind of my experience of success is working yourself out of the job of the Scrum Master today, because then tomorrow, both the team and the Scrum Masters can be focusing on higher level or different challenges to continue to improve, reduce waste, and find more effective ways to get our work done, becoming a whole organization. But it kind of spreads. It's like a bubble, starting with that Scrum team, and it expands out from the team, but also from the Scrum Master and and or coach. I mean, you can use all of those, whatever term works for you.
Yeah, I really agree with that. I mean, there's this concept of single loop and double loop learning, right? And most Scrum Masters never get out of the single loop learning, which is the staying with their team, staying with their team. And to me, the way Scrum Masters can be most valuable is teach the team how to value Scrum so that they do it. They understand why they're doing it. They understand the importance of feedback. They understand the importance of exercising empiricism, and they understand the importance of frequent value of delivery. And then as a Scrum Master, you can focus on exactly that in the organization. How do we deliver faster? How do we deliver more frequently? How do we engage our customers more? How do we bring that feedback into our development process? That is how I believe Scrum Masters can impact the organization. If they stay focused just on their teams and, well, gee, my team's doing well, we refine our backlog, we have our velocity going up. Velocity is a hygiene metric. It doesn't talk at all about the functionality of the organization or the company. It just talks about the functionality of your team. And to me, that's a good place to start, but you have to evolve as a Scrum Master if you want to be valuable to the organization. Dan, what do you think?
What do I think? Okay. So a couple things. First of all, I think the Scrum Master role, call it whatever you want, Scrum Lead or some other name, that role is essential. You can't have a chair, a minimum number of legs in a chair is three legs, right? So it's going to fall down if you only have two. If we look at Scrum, there's three roles. It's not a precise analogy, but the USA Constitution has three branches of government, right? Same concept applies here. There's a separation of powers. So as I was listening to the conversation, it dawned on me that the Scrum Master actually has to be a great communicator. And I don't mean just speaking, I mean or just sending, but the receiving as well. Like you have to be able to pick up on small nuance about the group and what it's ready to do, right? So this is not everyone has these skills, right? But they can be taught. So for me, that's very important. And I think the sports analogy that was mentioned in the earlier part of the conversation is not precise, but it's especially apt. Like we could think about, okay, like in football, the goal is to put it across the goal line. What's interesting about that is that there's a lot of practice that occurs before game day. Okay, so this is what we need to get to with the Scrum that we're implementing is folks have to understand basic implementation. A good Scrum Master will help with that. Right, a good Scrum Master knows how to bring it on in a way that everybody wants it. So those are my summary thoughts on it. I think the role is essential.
It leads into this conversation leads into one of the things that I spotted while reading through the all the proceedings, and the word kind of culture, or the phrase culture first, and seeing it across a number of proceedings and a number of conversations in different ways.
Mm-hmm.
And how I see that connecting to this is that culture of supporting the teams, and the Scrum Master. There were conversations in a couple of the proceedings. One in which we were talking about executive sponsorship is really important, not just for that sort of support and giving permission, but the executive sponsors set the culture. And
Yeah.
and connecting that to this conversation, bringing that back to the culture of, if a Scrum Master's role is, or if the executives are saying that the Scrum Master's role is to be the administrator for the team, to take meeting notes, and more of that PM, or kind of limiting the roles of the Scrum Master, then that is going to challenge the success of Scrum and Agile in an organization. And then there were that was brought up, but also there was another session that was talking about the success of Scrum in with the future of kind of new roles in technology, our traditional kind of engineers, but we have new roles that are what they were bringing up in the particular session were data scientists and machine learning and artificial intelligence experts, and how they're more research and this idea of having of process the way they work and having a coach is not really in their consciousness yet, which is kind of how things were, I don't know, 15, 20 years ago with engineers. And so, and the process is a little bit, the culture is in their DNA, but these new roles, it's not. And partnering with the new roles to find opportunities and, where is the process, where are they challenged, and solving those problems first, which connects to culture, allowing that of evolution of solving problems to come from the people who were doing the work. And that it speaks to culture, not saying, here's our solution. It's what are our challenges and how can these agile processes and principles help us? Where can we do experiments and try new things and see and practice? I'm going to use the coaching analogy. Where do we practice so that then when we play the game, we're playing better than we were before? And all connects to culture and having the focus and almost the permission to choose our values, to have values that we can connect to and work through to know what to work on next.
Yeah, I totally agree. One of the sessions that really connected with me talked about the emphasis, the wrong emphasis, in my opinion, on process adherence over achieving tangible outcomes, and the importance of being framework agnostic and tailoring practice to fit the organizational needs. I think this is where we fall down a lot.
Right.
We walk in there and we say, let's do Scrum at scale, or let's do safe. And no one ever takes a step back and say, well, why do we want to do anything at all? What's the problem we're trying to solve? And I think as agilists in general, there's so many frameworks that we're all familiar with, and some of us have multiple certifications in, and methodologies and so forth. And really, we tend to lose why we do these things. And we tend to say, you have to strictly be doing Scrum exactly how it's supposed to be. And then the question becomes from a lot of the team members is why? And maybe the executives, they say, well, if I do what Scrum says, and I pay this person a lot of money and they teach Scrum, I'm going to magically have success. And they don't understand, well, in order for Scrum to work, you have to have this certain environment. You have to have this acceptance that we have to be an empirical organization, that we have to bring our customers into the development process, that we have to establish strong feedback loops, that we have to realize that our requirements are really assumptions that have to be validated or invalidated. These are the organizational shifts that have to happen for anything, whether it's Scrum or Safe or anything, to be impactful. And so that was something that came out of, I think it was session 1C, that was, which means 1 was the first session, first time slot of the day, C being location C. I think we had 3 simultaneous sessions in the first time slot. Yeah. So that was a great session. For those out there listening who were part of that session, thank you, because that really resonated.
Yeah, 1C, the title was Scrum is Not the Goal, and that was Stan Lefebvre, and he gave a very rich proceedings document out of that, which was really, really good.
And I was picking up on those misalignments creating a toxic culture. Kind of that culture theme that I was seeing. It was the negative side. Everything kind of has 2 coins. It was that negative side, and uh, the way I interpret it is, having compassion for the executives who think they're making the right decision, and it's the unintentional consequences of the culture I guess is, kind of what I was also thinking is, people aren't, we don't wake up, executives, anyone doesn't wake up in the morning and say, oh, I want to make the lives of everyone that works in this organization miserable. It's unintentional, it's unknowing. And how can we help put a spotlight on the outcome, the challenges that come up in a way that aren't accusatory, that helps people see and go move along their journey to improve the way they help others and change the culture.
Yeah, and it goes back a little bit to what Pooja had brought up at the start, right? Is that, these misalignments at the top trickle down to general conflict at the team level, and it makes the Scrum Master's job impossible in some cases, because the Scrum Master is trying to teach these things to the team, but their management is pushing the team in a different direction. So you have that very normal conflict between the two. And who is the team going to listen to? Well, they're going to listen to the manager, because the manager directly impacts their revenue, their 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 um,
Their
their uh,
performance review.
their performance
Survival.
review, and
And
ultimately their money that they get. So it really is important from top to bottom. Almost, I hate to be cliche, but Simon Sinek had it right. You got to start with why. Why are we doing this? And what do we see us being on the other side of this? And then we'll figure out how. And maybe Scrum is the how in some places, but not all places. That's another thing that I think we get ourselves wrapped up
Maybe
in, is that,
part of Scrum. Maybe there
yeah,
are pieces and parts of Scrum that are really the solution for this particular team who are
right.
building this type of software. So whatever
Yeah.
they're building.
Yeah, I wasn't going there, but you're right. But I was going in a different place that said, not all teams need to be Scrum teams, for example, or not all parts of the organization need to be Scrum. There's some parts that might say it doesn't make sense. We don't have customers. We don't bring customers into our thing. We're building this, and we have very very defined specs, so we wouldn't be having a need for a feedback loop. Okay, let's see what, maybe what you're doing is good enough. Maybe we can apply something different there. So taking all of our knowledge, looking at the problems that organizations have, and trying to apply our knowledge to solve those problems. That's how I think we can be most valuable to the organization.
In those Joe, you said earlier, we come up with hypotheses and we either prove them or disprove them. I mean, continually using that loop or that assumption in the process that you're talking about. And is
Yeah,
this working? What part of this is working for us? What part can be different or better?
yeah, absolutely. I think that's one of the big shifts that have to happen with senior leaders, right? Is to understand that it's not requirements. It's not. I don't define an MVP before I actually ship something. I have an assumption of what an MVP is, and my customers, my end users, will ultimately validate whether my assumptions were right or not. And I'm open to the fact that my assumptions could be wrong. Okay. This is something that I think is a fundamental shift in a lot of mindsets, but that has to happen first and foremost at every level.
Yeah, and I think, Joe, you hit it right on the head with, hey, you know what? I need to accept that I could be wrong. Oftentimes, when leadership, they're not willing to admit that. And to Anne's point, that's a part of the culture toxicity, right? Because they're going to continue to drive what they initially came in with, and they won't shift from that because they want to make sure that what they initially set out to, deliver, proceed, whatever with the team is what that's going to continue to happen. So, yeah, great, great points.
I want to call attention to session 2C by Jody Kane. It's in the Proceedings PDF. And she talked about, non-engineers, people who are data scientists, most of them are PhDs, AI, machine learning people, and how this is sort of the new world of Scrum. Is it's up and out of engineering, and it's coming into these quasi-engineering spaces and in business agility spaces, right? And any coach that's been around for a while, went Scrum by the book in the beginning and then realized Scrum by the book isn't really that important. What's really important is the core ideas of empirical process, open to experience, ready to pivot, leadership support, and all this kind of stuff. So I want to offer a couple of things. Let's say that we're working with data scientists who have PhDs and don't want to do Scrum. Well, what we could do is ask them to give it a try for a couple of weeks, and we could do 2 1-week sprints, and that would give them enough experience in 2 cycles. One would be a little bumpy, the other one would be smooth, and we would actually generate results from that that would be surprising to them in as little as 2 weeks. So I think we need to stand on that fundamental assumption that we can deliver results in a really short period of time with using practices inspired by Scrum. So that's the first part. But to get their buy-in first and get their agreement and get their permission and then go ahead and do it, right? That's the first thing. The second thing is, and of course, this is all based on an assumption on we want to get results. That results are the goal, not Scrum itself, right? Okay. So we get their buy-in, we're heading towards results. There's one more thing that I think is really, really essential here. And it came to me when I was reading Jodi's write-up about her session 2C about the data scientist. Basically, a critical success factor is to have stakeholders at the sprint review. That will almost guarantee results. And it does something else as well. It demonstrates leadership support, because usually these stakeholders are people who have budget authority, or they're sponsoring the effort to get the results, right? That's what the definition of a stakeholder is they have a stake in the outcome. So if they're not present at the review, the Scrum will be a disaster. Why? Because the purpose of the review is to gather valuable feedback from those stakeholders so we can pivot, make mid-course corrections, and go in the direction of the goal, right? So I think that those things, getting buy-in from the actual team, try it for a small period of time, and then getting the stakeholders to the review, which will signal it's actually an important meeting for them, right? That's actually really, really important because it symbolizes leadership support for what's going on. You do that for 2 or 3 weeks, 2 or 3 sprints, you're going to have great results at the end. And Scrum will be fun for those data science PhDs or anyone else that you're doing it with. And Scrum is actually fun because winning is fun, and actually Scrum does help you win. So, I feel that we should stick our necks way out and stand on the assumption that we're going to deliver the goods in 2 or 3 sprints. And we're going to have a really interesting referendum at the end of those 3 sprints with those data science guys who were skeptical in the beginning. Can I raise one more comment on one more session?
Sure.
All right, so session 2A was talking about evolutionary biology as it applies to like Scrum and organizational, goal seeking. There's a bullet in there that goes, humans are the only animals that follow inauthentic leaders. Why is that? And I think, I want to comment on this. I think it has to do with wanting to have certainty and wanting to know the story. If a leader can tell a story that's coherent that I already want to believe, I'm going to follow that person. So a lot of insincere so-called leaders will tell a coherent story because they learned from being in that role that that's what actually works. Right? The story doesn't have to be true. It has to be coherent, right? So I want to repeat that. It doesn't have to be true. It has to be coherent. So in Scrum, we're doing a lot of improvisation where the story's a little vague. It's a little incoherent, right? Because we're trying to move towards product market fit. We're doing these reviews with the stakeholders. We're learning that we went in the wrong direction. We need to go in this other direction. Or something comes out in the review that I didn't even understand 2 sprints ago that I should have understood, right? So there's all this sort of ambiguity and uncertainty and liminality going around, which explains why people, will go for, a story that's not really true. Like for example, the big upfront project story. First, we're going to do A, then we're going to do B, then we're going to do C. It's all phase gated. It's Gantt charted out 6 months, and everything's going to be so great, right? That's actually an example of a coherent story that's not really true, right? So when we're in the complexity space where we're trying to like sort of feel around for, what the deliverable needs to be, that most people can't handle that. So I think that's a big problem with Scrum. So the answer is to ask people to do things for a little while and then inspect that. And then they have the aha, and then we go do that again. And then they like, this is pretty good. Let's keep doing it. And then they ease into comfort with the uncertain nature of complexity, right? And how
Yeah.
to address it with Scrum. So
It's
I think
it's the
that's actually
essence.
a big deal.
It's the essence of discovery, and
Right, right,
discovery is what leads to improvement,
exactly.
innovation. It starts with openness to discovery.
And
Um,
the reminder that we can't tell the future or predict the future, those awesome project plans that plan everything out every moment of the day and whatever, how all the pieces are going to fit together. It's not really like a puzzle that all fits together. Things change and the future is not determined. And let's bring that into our understanding and embrace that uncertainty.
We should call out that we're going to continue to do open space education. I'm doing a section now that has 40 people signed up. And Ann, I think, is in on that one. And
I am too.
we're going to keep doing it. So people who want to learn about open space, come to our website, come to the LinkedIn group, learn what we're doing now, and sign up.
Yeah, I mean, this session is a 12-week session. It goes to the end of March. This session is closed for registration, but Dan, I think you said you'd be willing to do another session,
Sure.
another 12-week session. So we'll be talking about advertising that soon, and you can get on to the next train and learn about how to bring open space to your organization. So again, thank you, Ann and Pooja and Dan, for being here and talking about this topic. And go to agileboston.org for all of our content and upcoming events. We have an event calendar there. Join our mailing list, which you can also do from agileboston.org. As Dan mentioned, join our LinkedIn channel. That's where we post this podcast and other our monthly sessions. Plus, we always post thoughts about what's going on in the Agile industry. And finally, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, Agile Boston, and you can watch this podcast and all of our podcasts and monthly events there. Until next time, we can't wait to see you again. Take care.